Hey guys, so you might ask, oh, already slipping inside, man. Just starting the hike. May I ask, what brought this guy out here today? And other than talking with you guys, it really stems from desire to get out in nature, to connect with her. And it's something I've been reflecting on, and I want to speak a little bit on, because I think there's a lot of confusion and misconception regarding the process of desiring. And, someone might tell you, in order to attain happiness and peace, first of all, it's not attainment, it's our natural state. But in order to attain happiness and peace, you have to be desireless. Now, I'm not going to tell you that, because I realize that it's not desire that's the problem. The question is a matter of whether or not the process of desiring is conscious. If we bring awareness to a desire, there's no problem. Desiring is not a problem. It's only a problem if it's an unconscious process and it makes someone run like a madman. For instance, what brought me out here today, you might ask, is a desire. It's a desire that brought you to this video. So the question is really, does a desire come from within? Or is it a reaction to a social situation? Say your neighbor has 2 big buffaloes, and you want 3 buffaloes to one-up them, right? So it's a reaction. It really doesn't come from within. It's conditional on something outside of you. Whereas a heart desire is rooted in pure motivation. It's backed by a heartfelt intention, and thus it's more likely to manifest. In fact, it's backed by the power of belief. And when I say power, I mean energy, or the will to believe. And when we bring that energy, or bring that power to a desire, bring awareness to it, it will accordingly manifest. And that's also something I want to speak on, is being eternal in our existence. Realizing that this manifest world is a reflection of that eternal essence within. You can maintain your individuality while not identifying with the mind and body. That's to say, you can be an individual still without a psychological or physiological format. And thus you'll be eternal in your existence, because you identify with the energy or the life force that is continuously expressing as the manifest world and as the life, the piece of life that you are. When we identify with the energy, naturally, we'll see things clearly. We won't see ourselves separately from that which exists, because we'll identify with the existence itself. Now we can understand this intellectually, but we really want to feel this viscerally. We want to feel that deep sense of connection with the world around us. And that really requires us to go within and do some soul searching to overcome the lower desiring, the lower emotions. We don't want to suppress or repress desires. We just want to bring awareness to them as they arise in consciousness. Because just by bringing awareness to something, it can kind of diminish, right? Let's say Fritos before bed. Our personal will, one's personal identity, one's personality, might find it really hard to give up those Fritos before bed, right? But when backed by spiritual intent, or the spiritual will, that impersonal aspect of consciousness that's really doing the soul searching and wants us to expand and raise in awareness and consciousness, that impersonal aspect, which is within all of us, the same self, the self-same essence and awareness, is looking back at us through the eyes of the bird, through everything. So I bring out here today, I know I kind of just lost my train of thought, and that's okay. It's very still out here. I hope you feel that too, because it's really in that stillness and in that silence where we get in tune with that impersonal state of consciousness, where we can still maintain our individuality without identifying with a personality. And ironically, in that state of consciousness, the personality has a lot more zest. We can really embody that personality. And we can really have fun with it because there's no identification with it. We kind of see it as a game. It's having fun. It's playing with life. It's good not to take things so serious. Of course, you can. But we don't want to be stuck there. We don't want to be serious all the time. When it comes to discipline and getting in line, spiritual alignment, spiritual commitment, heartfelt intent, it's good to be serious. If we need to whip ourselves into shape, it's time to be serious. But we don't want to be stuck there all the time. We don't want to cling to it and be attached to seriousness. We don't want to avoid it either. Attachment and aversion, likes and dislikes. When you're eternal in your existence and you identify with life, you see the process of creation as continuous, as arising, spontaneous, and your existence is synonymous with that, with everything. So there's not an attachment because you're not separate. It's a self-same essence. The process of creation and existence is a miraculous occurrence. And it's not even an occurrence because an event or an occurrence or happening implies a sequence, implies time. But there's a space that we can access within our human awareness and consciousness, which there is no time. There is no sequence. It's simply as it is. It's all here now. In that state of consciousness, that presence is always with us. It's always now. And sometimes we may feel it more than others. But nevertheless, it's always here. beyond all concepts. Here and now is a concept. It's an idea. But that state of consciousness is beyond all thoughts. It's beyond the psychological process, and thus beyond an identification with mind. It's founded in that stillness, where the mind is still, like nature, on this beautiful winter day. You know, somebody texted me earlier today. Mother, you know, speaking of Mother Nature, right? I see all women as mother or sister. And thus there's no lust. When you see everything is the divine mother, is that wonderful feminine energy, divine Shakti, then there's no question of lust. Somebody asked me, they were like, does human retention get easier? And, you know, I said, at this point, I'm not even thinking about it. It's automatic. You know, at first, I had to have a lot of discipline. Had to kind of force myself, like, you're not doing this. And it's a considerable psychological investment. But after a while, it becomes automatic. And once you realize how much it's done for you, how you feel as a result of that commitment, and how the world responds as a result of that, then you really, it's not even a question of falling back, the fall of man, falling down, of having that life energy fall, which is, that's really what the fall of man means. It's that life energy which wants to be in the brain, falling, or being expended outwardly. That's what it means. I'm not going to get into that, but going back, somebody said today, actually, I was out at the store. Don't do a lot of shopping. Happened to be at the store today and saw somebody I knew. I was actually checking out and came up to me. He said, it's the first time somebody's addressed me as Practice Being. He's like, is that Practice Being? The YouTube channel name? And I looked up and it was a guy I used to see at the gym. You know, we were talking a little bit. And he was asking me about, you know, where I'm hiking, where I'm making these videos. He's been watching the channel. So shout out to you if you're watching now. Shout out to you, Al. Cool guy. But yeah, we're just chatting a little bit, and I inquired about John, one of my dear friends. He's also a devotee of the Lord. Of course, he won't describe himself as such. He's very open-hearted, but not so much open as far as verbal expression is concerned. Not like I am. I'll say anything. I'll tell you, you know, all my dirt. I'll tell you, you know, anything that I think will bring you value. Anything that's brought me value, and I want to share with you. And I inquired about him because he's the gym owner. One that I mentioned a couple other videos ago. And I asked Alice, like, hey, how's John doing? Haven't seen him in a while. And he's like, oh, he's well. He's got that cold that's going around. And I automatically said, I was like, yeah, I don't catch colds. Because going back to what we were talking about belief, the power of the belief, the will to believe. It's funny that some of us may, well, not funny, but, you know, it is what it is. We can see it as funny that some of us may think that colds are catching. We may identify with that belief. Oh, cold's going around. Well, guess what? If you believe that, you're likely going to catch that cold because that's the power of the mind. That's identifying with a concept, and as such, that is more likely to manifest in the body. We want to understand the power of our mentality and how that can influence the physical reality, including our body, which is not separate from the physical world around us. We don't want to identify with the senses, with the five senses, but we don't want to resist them either. We want to understand there's something beyond. We want to devote our lives to discovering that within ourselves. Not just listening to somebody else who has went within and done that soul searching. Of course, that can bring us some peace, but ultimately it's something that is found by going within. It's up to each of us to do that soul searching. But colds are not catching. Don't believe that. Get the sniffles coming out here sometimes. And get really sensitive to sound. You realize that creation is vibration. And that vibration is the language of God. And energy and frequency. That sacred vibrational energy, the essence, which is referred to as the life force, which is the basis of the process of existence, which is eternal. And it's always with us. And thus, you can never be alone. Because that presence is always with you. In fact, it's those times where we venture out into the wilderness, where we might do something that we don't really want to do, or which at first may seem like it's uncomfortable, where we sit and be still when we're alone and there's no distraction. It's in those times where we find that the presence is actually a space of wholeness and completeness, which is beyond all concepts. Everything in the world is an idea. It's manifests. It's a result of a concept. It's an idea of God. And yet it's on the surface. It's an appearance. That space of consciousness, which is pure and utter stillness, the silence beyond the sound, the spiritual world that's in back of the material world. It's in that space of consciousness, in this space of consciousness from which these words are expressed, that we find that we are really living entities beyond time. And thus, there's complete and wholehearted self-acceptance. Some of us may think that we have to accept ourselves, but we don't want to think like that, because that is defining ourselves as separate from the thought process. The same energy behind desire and behind thought and behind willpower is the same energy behind life. There's no separation. We don't want to create that dualistic split within ourselves. We don't want to think that I have to accept myself, because then I'm defining myself as a body and mind, as a personality. And it's that dualistic split, defining oneself as a separate identity inwardly, that gets in the way of true self-acceptance and thus peace. When there's 100% acceptance of what is, you could say surrender to what is in the moment now, we really get in tune with the presence as we surrender all resistance to life, whether it be energy rising inwardly or material energy reflected back to us outwardly. As we surrender all resistances, the presence becomes all-encompassing. And there's no person to take credit for it. It's just there. It's in everything. And you really feel that as you get out in nature, as you venture, as you endeavor, and try new things, as you do something. Like I said before, that may initially make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. But as you overcome yourself, you realize that the outer situation, the outer weather, is not what makes you feel uncomfortable. It's that inner resistance to the life process, whatever the circumstance. That's what makes you feel uncomfortable. It arises inwardly, that energy. We don't want to be at the effect of outward energy, define ourselves as separate from it again. We don't want to have the victim's mentality. We want to own ourselves completely. And as we do, as one owns themselves completely, they own all of humanity. Because there's no separate identity, as you identify with the life energy. Anyways, I think Spirit has said all it's wanted to say through this one today, through this human organism, which is an extension of Gaia, the Mother Earth. This body is a part of the earthly body, has grown out of the earth like an apple that grows out of a tree. This body is simply a piece of the earth. It's not my spiritual, not my soul identity, but it's simultaneously functioning in this 3D reality as the soul awareness within the body, is aware of it simultaneously in the physical domain and beyond it in the spiritual dimensions, which is really being in tune and sensitive to this life energy within us, understanding things not just physically but metaphysically, understanding not just the outer cosmos and dissecting it analytically and scientifically, but understanding the inner cosmos metaphysically, being really in tune with this life energy inwardly. And when there's that heightened degree of sensitivity, which we can attain through certain practices, which we can realize it's not an attainment, it's not something to get. Enlightenment is not something to go after and pursue. It's our natural state. And certain practices like semen retention and meditation and fasting can really help us be that heightened sensitivity and thus realize our inherent connectivity and be sensitive to the life energy within us and thus all around us, because there's no separateness. I guess that's the essence of, most of this channel. Because, we may all be familiar with the concept that everything's connected. But what good is that is if it's just an idea, if it's not something that we feel for real. I love you guys, for real. It's not just words. Oftentimes you may say stuff without even realize what we're saying. It is a reaction, right? Somebody says I love you, you immediately say I love you back. But when we say it like that, we lose the feeling behind the words, the true meaning behind the words. It's an energy. Love may be expressed with words, but it's really a vibe. It's, words are a vibe. There's energy in words. It's not so much what somebody says, the content of the words, but the energy behind the words, how they say it. Somebody may say I love you, and it might be a completely different feeling than how somebody else says I love you. If it's just a reaction, somebody says I love you, and I love you too, then it may not feel the same way as somebody that says I love you, and they really feel that in their heart, because their heart is open. We want to get out here, breathe the fresh air, open up our lungs, open up that heart chakra. And we want to continuously give thanks, because when we give thanks, I'm always giving thanks every day. A prayer is really something that we become. Bon Jovi song, living on a prayer. It's something that you become, really. And when you give thanks continuously, naturally, your heart will open. And when your heart's open, man, you operate at a completely different frequency. You operate at a higher vibration. And thus you feel that sense of connection. And thus there's no problems. Because when you operate from a state of love, there's no resistance. There's a complete acceptance of everything as it is. There's not trying to control anything. Because there's no problems in the world, right? Only if we feel that it has to be different by trying to control it. Then it's a problem. And again, that arises from within. Has nothing to do with what's going on around us. It has mainly to do with inner resistance. And when we rise our life energy up to the heart space, when we open our hearts, we've overcome those lower emotions because our heart's open. And thus there's no resistance. And it's that silence of the heart. This silence which we're really searching for. There's that element of desire and seeking within everybody. Is it an unconscious process? Are we aware that this desire for the boundlessness of our true nature is something that's always there? And when we find it, when we discover it within ourselves, we want to share it with others. Because there's no difference. It may appear that way on the surface, but that same essence, that same light, is looking back to you through all of life. Even now,